This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming Granny Hulkster. She is one of the co-hosts, or should I say ho-hosts, of Attitude Era Live, the podcast that I was on back in February, which is mainly hosted by Scott the Icon Halmrest. And Granny Hulkster, she was on Greg Gilbert's podcast, and I thought she was absolutely hilarious. And Icon said that she loved me. And we're going to talk today. We're going to talk about wrestling. I'm not a huge wrestling guy, but we'll also talk about movies as well and Attitude Era Live. And she's based in the South, in Arkansas. So it'll be an interesting conversation today, I am sure. And man, a lot's been on my mind lately. You know, lots of things. Paul Rubin's death, the strike, you know, the end game for life and humanity as we know it. It's been the scariest time ever, and I just hope things will freaking get better somehow, and that we'll see a light at the end of the tunnel, and this will all just be, a temporary clusterfuck. I hope so. I really do. Because I love doing this podcast, and I'm trying to get healthy, lose weight, and just be happy, That damn freaking car accident that I had, it really put me in a pickle, but it was my fault, and my fault only, and I just regret it so much. But I don't regret, the whole thing, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here right now. And I love all my listeners that tune in each week. I thank you all so much for that. So yeah, here is my interview with Granny Hulkster. Hey Granny, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Yes, this is such a great honor. Thank you for taking the time today. I enjoyed being on Attitude Era Live back in February, and I thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. So let's start with your background. Are you born and raised in Kansas?
Yes, I am. I was born and raised in Leavenworth, Kansas. I lived there most of my life. I moved out to a little farming community for about 17 years out in a little town called St. Francis, Kansas, which was the very last town in Kansas before you got into Colorado and Nebraska. I mean, we were like 13 miles from the Nebraska line and 10 miles from the Colorado line. So we saw a lot of mountains out there, closer that you got to Colorado and everything. But yeah, my dad, he worked for the telephone company until he retired. My mom, she was pretty much a stay-at-home mom, and I have one brother. And so I moved back to Leavenworth, graduated from high school in 1980. And I got married for the first time in 1984, 85, something like that. I have one son. He was born in 1987. Unfortunately, my first marriage didn't turn out very well, so I ended up getting a divorce, and I was a single mom for 23 and a half years, and then I moved to Arkansas in 1988, and
wow.
I currently live in Springdale, Arkansas, where I moved here in 1999, and got remarried to my wonderful husband, David, in December 19th of 2009. So that's pretty much my, I worked for Walmart for almost 15 years before I had to quit due to health issues.
Yeah.
But I've always been a wrestling fan. Love my wrestling, and I guess I'll tell you how Granny Hulkster came about.
Okay.
I was one of my former co-workers was working. We were in the break room one day, lunch or break, whatever, and he says, "Well, I'm going to start calling you Granny Hulkster." And I looked at him. I said, "What?" And he said it again, and I said, "Why?" And he says, "Because you like wrestling." And I said, "Well, I do like wrestling." But I remember telling somebody the other day, the scenario before I became Granny. I mean, I always hollered at the bad guys. I never liked the heels. I never liked the bad guys. But since I've been Granny, which I've had that gimmick name for probably the past 25, 26 years or so, maybe even a couple years longer than that, the promoters, they like to get me involved. My very dear friend, Lynn Burton, who, God rest her soul, we lost Lynn last year.
I'm sorry about that.
And, well, she was a good person. She was the one that actually made my Granny shirts that I have. I have 3 of them.
Yeah.
My original one says, "What you gonna do when Granny Hulkster goes crazy on you?" The other one, it says, the only Granny Hulkster, and then on the back it says, "Hey, shut up and wrestle." And then the third one, where there was a company in Arkansas that ran for a while called Traditional Championship Wrestling, and they used to do TV tapings. Well, they quit running in 2013, but they still show the old TV tapings on television in the Little Rock area on television. Here, 10 years later, they're still showing those. And I still have people to this day come up and ask me. They say, "Hey, aren't you Granny? Aren't you that lady from TCW?" And I mean, we would go to the shows, and they would always have me sit right in the front row, right in the center seat, always facing the cameras.
Uh-huh.
Because they knew that I would interact with the wrestlers. And that's what promoters, I guess, love about me, because they will get me involved. They will, but I mean, I always interact with the wrestlers. It's a lot of fun. I mean, the heels, they'll tell me, "Well, why don't you sit down and shut up before you break a hip?" Or, "Don't you have a curfew at the nursing home, Granny? Isn't it past your bedtime?" And
yeah,
they go on and on and on, and I just, get right back in their face. I mean, I've been handcuffed to managers. I actually had a manager at Wrestling for a Cause, which is another great organization I help with out in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. They actually do shows for kids that fight childhood cancer. And they're getting ready to have their 12th year anniversary show, October 21st of this year. Well, last year at the anniversary show, one of our heel managers, Big Stevie Caballero was his name.
Yeah.
And he came up to me before the show, and he says, "Well, Granny, you want to do something tonight?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, what do you want me to do?" And he would never tell me. He just looked at me and smiled and says, "Just watch me, follow my lead, and keep your mouth shut." And he gave me a kiss on my cheek.
Yeah.
He said, "Stevie, what are you up to?" So this 8 or 10-man tag team match started, and it was like a 10-man elimination tag team match is what it was. And all of a sudden, the match started. Here comes Stevie, and he pulls out a pair of handcuffs. And he just, right on my wrist. I said, "Stevie, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
Just, everything's cool, Granny, just, Well, his way of thinking was, if I'm handcuffed to Granny, nobody's going to hurt me because they don't want to hurt Granny. That was his way of thinking. But it didn't work out too good for Big Stevie, because somebody had gotten a hold of a metal cookie sheet, and it got pretty bent up and everything, Well, I ended up using that metal cookie sheet on Caballero. So, so I asked Stevie after the show, I said, well, Stevie, how was I? And he said, you did everything absolutely I wanted you to do. And I'm like, okay, you could have told me. And he says, yeah, but just not knowing. I said, Stevie, I could have still pulled it off. You just should have told me what you were going to do. But he finally, probably 5 or 10 minutes within the match or whatever, maybe 15, because I think it was like an hour time limit or whatever it was. And he finally came and took the handcuffs off. But I was like, oh my God, Stevie, I can't believe you're doing this. But I love wrestling. Like I said, I always have. But as I said, the scenario was so much different after I became Granny, because they just get me so much more involved, which I love. I mean, the wrestlers, they all call me Granny. Their spouses call me Granny. Their kids call me Granny. The fans call me Granny. I mean, I actually asked Tim Rockwell, the founder of WFC, I said, Tim, it was like the first WFC show that my husband and I had went to in Oklahoma, and I had asked Tim, I said, do you even know what my real name is? And he says, no. All I've ever known you by was Granny. So I had to tell him what my real name was, but he never knew me. He never knew me by Lori Bird. He only knew me as Granny Hulkster, so, which is kind of fun, so.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so a lot of great people are from Kansas. Dennis Hopper, Dee Wallace. I mean Kansas has that kind of history there. And oh my God, I've interviewed a couple sex experts from Kansas. I did not know people over there are such freaks, because isn't it supposed to be a Bible Belt town?
I get teased by people when they find out from Kansas. I'll get teased about Wizard of Oz, Dorothy and Toto. Have you seen Dorothy and Toto lately?
Yeah.
I called into a friend's podcast last night that he does every week on the VOC Nation, called In the Room. I don't know if you're familiar with the name Brady Hicks or not, but I called into his podcast last night because I listen to his podcast once in a while.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, don't you start seeing the color when you get back into Arkansas, Granny? When you leave Kansas and you start getting back to Arkansas, you see the color. Or one of the other guys on Howard Morgan asked me last night, well, did you ride the tornado back, or did you ride on the broomstick? Or I said, I drove my car. Or they'll tease me about, because Leavenworth, Fort Leavenworth is there at Leavenworth, but Leavenworth has the federal penitentiary there in Leavenworth, Kansas, because my uncle actually worked there for years. He was like a guard thing. I don't know. I don't remember exactly his title was, but he worked with the prisoners there. And so they'll ask me, oh, well, did you escape or did they let you out early? And I said, neither one, because I was never in. But I know my dad, when he worked for the telephone company, he would come home and tell us stories.
Yeah.
He'd say he was never claustrophobic, but whenever he'd go in to work on the telephone lines or whatever, or the phones there, he'd hear those big metal doors slam behind him. He was always glad to get back on the outside, but, so I don't know, it wasn't a bad town. It's changed a lot since I've been gone. Like I said, I left there in 1988, and I was there just recently to see my mom. Last week, my husband and I went up for a couple of days to see my mom. She lives in an assisted living facility up there, and my brother, he lives in Olathe, Kansas, with his wife. He works for the airport, and he's retired from the Army and everything. He got out of the Army on a medical discharge because of his knee, but he's currently working for the airport there in Kansas City. What he does, I didn't get to see him. I talked to him a couple times, but I didn't get to see him. And then I came back home to lovely Springdale, Arkansas on Sunday. So.
Yeah. So, what age did your interest in wrestling officially begin?
What age? Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, I was probably in my teens. I mean, being in that area, near Kansas City, of course, I was very familiar with the names Harley Race, Bulldog Bob Brown, Rufus R. Jones,
Pepper Gomez,
Bob Geigel,
Pepper Gomez.
Yeah, I mean, the name, I'm actually personal friends with Harley's son, Leland Race, and his wife, Stacey O'Brien. They're both personal friends of mine. I've met so many big-time wrestling people over the years. I mean, when traditional championship wrestling ran in Arkansas, I mean, that was how I got to meet Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, the Rock and Roll Express, for the very first time. I actually have a picture of me getting to wear Robert's WWE Hall of Fame ring, and I didn't even ask if I could wear it. He put that ring on my finger for the picture. And beautiful Bobby Eaton, he helped with traditional championship wrestling, God rest his soul. I had the opportunity to get to know Bobby before he passed, and that was just a very big honor. I mean, Mickey James, Matt Hardy, oh gosh, Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yeah.
I'm friends with Trevor Murdoch. I know Trevor Murdoch really well. I've met Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I don't want to leave anybody's name out because I know I'm going to forget somebody. But
do you know Sergeant Slaughter?
I've met Sergeant Slaughter. I got to see Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleCon. Mm-hmm. My husband, my son, and I went with our friend that lives in New York to WrestleMania 38 when they had it in Dallas. And I got to meet him at WrestleCon. I'm friends with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I've actually had dinner with Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Tommy Dreamer. I've had dinner with Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer was I've seen Tommy Dreamer many a times at TCW and everything and other wrestling shows. And we went to Nashville actually they were opening for the Tennessee State Fair, and it was right after my birthday. And I've got a birthday coming up the 29th of this month. I'll be 61. And
happy birthday.
Well, thank you. So we rented a car, and we put our dogs in doggy daycare, and we went to Tennessee. And that morning we were at the hotel all having breakfast, and Johnny Morton, one of the guys that helped with TCW, he says, well, Granny, when you come to the fairgrounds, just come up this side hill and tell the security guard you're with TCW, and that way you can park by the building, because I had not had my first knee replacement yet, and I was having to walk with a cane. Mm-hmm. Well, the way they had the parking set up, I would have had to park in this little handicapped area, walk up this really steep hill, and then walk from one side of the fairground clear to the opposite side of the fairground. So we went up there, and I talked to the security guard, and I said, I'm supposed to let you know I'm with TCW. He says, well, do you have any credentials? And I had my Granny Hulkster Queen at TCW shirt on, and he said, oh, you're here for the show? I said, yes, sir, but I said, I have really bad knees, and I'm having to walk with a cane right now because I'm getting ready to have knee surgery, in a few short months. I'm going to have a total knee replacement, so I'm having to walk with a cane right now, and I can't really walk long distances. So he says, I said, I can call somebody for you. He says, no, I believe you. So, but they had made arrangements for me just to park really close. I mean, close to the building. They always take really good care of me. I mean, that's what I love about my wrestling family. I'm not related to any of them, but I know that if I ever needed help or anything, all I'd have to do is pick up a phone call, and they'd be right there to help me if they could. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I walk with a cane too, so I totally get it. I'm not a huge wrestling fan, but my mom and my brother are. And when I was growing up, my best friend, oh my God, he loved it. I did real wrestling in high school. I wrestled at 275 when I was a sophomore in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
I have one of my matches on tape, and
Wow.
as soon as I get my VCR hooked up, because I just moved into a new place, I'm going to go back and watch it. It's been literally maybe about 22 years since I watched it, maybe 23. It's just, I was embarrassed by it for a long time. But I mean, obviously you're a Hulk Hogan fan, right?
Well, I like Hulk Hogan. I mean, now when he turned heel and big part of the, I get a lot of ribbing, like everybody wants to know when Granny's turning heel, and I'm like, I'm not turning heel. They said, well, Hulk Hogan did, and I said, well, that was Hulk Hogan. I'm Granny. I don't like the heels. You know that. I mean, I had a little boy come up and ask me one time, hey, are you Hulk Hogan's grandma? And I said, no, sweetheart, I'm not, because Hulk Hogan's older than I am. So, I'm not his grandma, but I remember getting back to WFC, Trevor Murdoch, he was doing a seminar, a couple different seminars for WFC there. And the first one he did, we always took merchandise for Tim a lot, so we were there before one of the shows one day, and we actually got to sit in and watch it, which was kind of cool, because the normal wrestling fan would not normally get to do something like that, And so we were sitting there, and Trevor said, now let's tell you that, he was telling people how to work around. He said, then you have people like that smart, loving woman over there, Granny Hulkster, and he started talking about smart marks, and he kind of pointed my way. And I said, Trevor, I don't know everything. He says, darling, you know more than most. And then he did another seminar, and he was saying, go to Granny, use her as your goal, make her mad, piss her off. And I said, Trevor, they already do. Don't give them any ideas. But
yeah, did you know that he was a rock musician before he got into wrestling?
I'm sorry?
Did you know that Hulk Hogan was a rock musician before he got into wrestling?
Yeah, I had read that. I had seen that, So.
I saw him do a podcast recently where he elaborated on it. They almost went on tour with Blackfoot, but he was the only member of the band who wasn't a fuck-up, and so they ended up dissolving before that could happen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my dad and I, we went to go see the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie at the drive-in, and the second movie was No Holds Barred, and we watched about 20 minutes of it, and then we got too tired and left. But we saw it just until the famous Dookie part came up, which was hilarious. Yeah. I love Suburban Commando. Go ahead.
I've never met Hulk Hogan, but I did get to meet his daughter Brooke at WrestleCon when I went to Texas for WrestleMania 38. It was kind of funny that a lot of people, or a lot of the professional wrestlers that were there that knew me, I had my, what you gonna do when Granny Hulkster shirt on, and everything. And the people from Fight TV, they actually did an interview with me there, which I was very humbled by. And we walk into this big room, and, the first person I see is the Godfather, and he's like, Granny Hulkster, I like that,
Yeah.
We went to Control Your Narrative that first night we had gotten into town, and we just basically got checked in the hotel, and then we were staying in another motel, and then we went to Control Your Narrative.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even have time to grab my Granny shirt, but people recognized me who I was, even without my granny shirt on. But, you know, I got to see Booker T again, which was pretty cool. And, you know, Ron Simmons and JBL were there. And, of course, I had met Ron Simmons and Tony Atlas about 3 or 4 years before that with my husband at an autograph signing. So Ron remembered who I was. And he says, well, Granny, he says, go over and tell Booker that Ron and John said you could have any piece of merchandise you wanted for free.
Yeah.
So I did, and Booker says, you tell those boys to get their asses over here. And when I got back, they were both gone. But, yeah, I remember Lance Archer there, and he used to wrestle for TCW, and as under the name of Lance Hoyt, you know, he's with AEW, and he says, and he, of course, he remembered me. He says, Granny, when are you coming to AEW? I said, well, when are you coming to Arkansas? And then I'll come to AEW, you know. But, and then I got to see Mickey James and Nick Aldis there, her husband, Nick Aldis. And it was funny. I was talking to Nick, and he says, well, Granny, you'd be broken-hearted if you had to boo me. I said, no, I wouldn't. You're a heel. I said, I wouldn't. And I thought Mickey was just going to die laughing, you know, and I didn't get to really talk to her much because she was, you know, so busy talking to other fans and stuff. But it was just, it was a dream come true for me and my family. That was our first WrestleMania that we got to go to, and our first WrestleCon. And my friend that had bought the tickets, he lives up in New York, so he flew into Kansas City. He got his grandfather's vehicle that his grandfather left for him and drove here to Arkansas, and then we drove to Texas, and it was just a fun trip. I mean, it really was. And
yeah.
I got to meet Lex Luger. I got to meet Jeff Hardy. And we were at a show here in Oklahoma, the 5th of August. It was called Extravaganza 2. WFC put it on. We had EC3 back again. We had Teddy Long there. We had Mr. Anderson. We had Scotty Tuhati, and we had JTG. Mm-hmm. And it was a great show. It was really a great show. But like I said, I have met so many great people over the years through wrestling. I mean, that everybody at WrestleCon, I mean, they were just like the professional wrestlers, the big name professional wrestlers that knew me. They were really happy to see me and everything. And then the ones that I had never met were like, I found out from my friend and my son that Heath Slater actually took a picture of me. I didn't even know it. And I was like, gosh, Heath, I could have taken a selfie with you or something, you know. But it was just a fun time, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, Icon told me you guys had talked to Al Burke, Mr. Outrageous. I talked to him. Sweet guy.
But I love my wrestling, so I love, you know, making it fun for the fans. I love doing what I do, the crowd, you know. My husband and I, when we were in Kansas over the weekend to see my mom, I found out that they were actually doing a wrestling show Saturday. They had taken, it used to be a high school, and it was Immaculata High School up there in Leavenworth, Kansas, and they had turned it into a hotel. And so they still had the gym, you know, inside. And so that's where this company, Heartland Championship Wrestling, it was their debut show. They had a wrestling show Saturday, so I got to see a lot of my friends that I hadn't got to see in a long time. You know, of course, I didn't have my granny shirt with me because I didn't know I was going to be going to a wrestling show, but made some new friends in wrestling, got to see some friends I hadn't seen in a while, so it was a fun night. So
have you gone to WrestleMania?
And WrestleMania 38 was the first one we attended when we went to Texas with my friend. Mm-hmm. That was our very first WrestleMania. I mean, I've been to like a SmackDown show over like in Tulsa, but I mean several years, you know, probably 6 or 7 years ago. But That was our first WrestleMania.
Yeah, my dad took my brother to one. It was one of the early ones back in like 85, 86, when he was like 12 or 13. It was in Oakland, California at the Coliseum. And I remember renting the video just to look to see if they're in the audience. I remember I couldn't find them. But yeah, I mean, wrestlers do Comic Cons now, and the prices for autographs are just so rapey now. I remember my mom wanted just to get a picture with somebody, and they're charging her like $30, and she didn't have it. And it's just like, come on, she's an old lady, for God's sake, you know?
Yeah, I know. I mean, but that's, what they have to do, especially if they're retired and they don't.
Oh no, they're still going. This one was still going.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a fun time. I mean, I had the opportunity back in June of this year. There's another company that I help with. It's a little company down in a little town called Mulberry, Arkansas. It's about an hour from here, and it's called DCW Down South Championship Wrestling is the name of the company. And I was able to pick up Ron Simmons and Bobby Fulton at the airport for the promoter and take them to their hotel like Friday when they came in, and then take them to the show on Saturday and then back to their hotel, Saturday night. That was a huge honor for me and a privilege. And I remember Ron Simmons telling the promoter, because the promoter shared this with me, he said, Granny was absolutely amazing. She did everything we asked her. She was respectful. She was prompt. She went above and beyond and went out of her way to make sure we were taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, when I ever come back to DCW, Granny better be the one picking me up or I'm not coming. But that's the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm just me. I'm nobody special. I don't claim to be nobody special. But it's like at Extravaganza too, one of the sponsors, Marty Ward from Big City Electric, he was telling me, he says, Granny, he says, you are just as big as these big celebrities that we have here tonight. And I said, well, thank you, but I said, I'm not really. I said, I'm not even a wrestler. I'm just a fan, but I'm very humble. I don't try to put myself over. I have fun at what I do. I try to make it fun for the fans, the wrestlers, especially the heels. They love the interaction, like when we go back and forth. But I try to be professional in everything I do. I try to be respectful to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't try to put myself over. I don't try to I don't try to make myself think better. I don't think of myself that I'm better than everybody else, because I'm not. I'm not perfect. I mean, I am far from being perfect. And if I make a mistake, I'll be the first one to tell you I'm sorry. But I don't believe, it's kind of like, I remember seeing a poster that a little boy had one time at a TCW show. It says, wrestling is real, people are fake. Yep. And, he gets me because people will come up and say, you watch wrestling, it's so fake, and I said, well, okay, you might say that, but what happens when you get thrown off the top ring rope and slammed through a table?
Exactly.
That's not fake. I'm sorry. That is not fake. I mean, that happened to one of my very good wrestling friends one time. He was wrestling a guy for TCW called Titan, and Titan was about 7'2", and Titan had my friend, his wrestling name was Mr. Saturday Night Michael Berry. He had him up on the top ring rope, and he had him in a choke slam, and he threw him through a table, and he went crashing through the table. And he almost had to give up his wrestling career. For about 9 or 10 months, he didn't wrestle. Doctors were telling him, you can't be doing this anymore. And he still does once in a while. I don't think he does as much as he used to, just because his schedule doesn't allow it, his work schedule, everything that he does right now. But I hate people that are like, they think that everything they do is all about them. And, they don't care about anybody else. They think, hey, I'm top dog here. I'm just it, and I'm sorry, but respect for people, it's not a given. It has to be earned.
Yeah. And,
it just really irks me sometimes, because I don't like, I wouldn't even have Facebook right now if it wasn't for me helping the different companies that I help do their independent shows with. My original Facebook that I had since 2009 got hacked a few months ago. I lost all my friends on that list. Whoever duplicated my account, just like made my friends. So I had to create a whole brand new Facebook account, which I hated doing, because there for about a month, I couldn't do nothing with it. I couldn't get in to contact my friends. Hey, I got hacked, don't accept this friend request, whatever, But I hate people that they want to make everything about them.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's like, especially when you're working with people, whether it be a podcast or whatever you're doing. If you're working with people, you need to be respectful to your co-host. I've had people. I've been on podcasts, or I've been a part of podcasts where I've had whoever is on there, and whether I'm listening to it or I'm just as a a guest call-in or whatever.
Right.
I've actually had people ask me, hey, why aren't you the one handling this interview? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the host of the show. I'm just a co-host, so I don't feel like it's my place to do that unless I've been asked to. I don't step on anybody's toes. I sit back and I listen, and I may ask one or two questions, but for the most part, I'll listen, And and I'm not a wrestler. Yeah. And I don't want to be a booker. I don't want to be a promoter. I just enjoy being the fan that I am.
Right.
But I don't make it about me. I don't work that way. It's like I tell people, mess with me all you want, but when you start messing with my friends, my family, my kids, my dogs, people that I care about, people that I consider family, then we're going to have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a problem with me, come and talk to me, and we'll work it out. But don't be nice to my face, or don't be nice to me over a phone, and then turn around and pull that knife out and start stabbing me in the back later on. I don't go that route. And I never have, and I never will. I love doing what I do, and I enjoy trying to make the shows all fun for everybody, and that's just. I'm very humble. I'm just me. I don't consider myself to be anybody special.
Uh-huh. I wish I had your discipline.
I'm sorry?
I wish I had your discipline.
Well, that's just the way that I am, and it takes a lot to make me mad. It takes a lot. I mean, I will not say anything. I will sit back and I will just kind of watch, or I'll listen, and but you get to the point where you start pushing my buttons, then yeah, we're going to have a problem. But I mean, it takes a lot to make me mad, but because I try to be professional. When I'm helping an independent wrestling company with their shows or whatever, whatever they want me to do, I step up and I do whatever I'm asked to do if I can, but I never make it about me.
Mm-hmm.
I never, I don't kiss somebody's butt.
I don't either.
To get my way in what I'm doing.
I don't
try
either.
to keep everything professional. I try to make it fun for everybody, but I don't have... my son teases me. My son likes to tease me. My son, he'll be 37 in January, and he likes to tease me because when I got to pick up Bobby Fulton and Ron Simmons, he says, well, I hope your inflated ego doesn't get in the way. And I said, I don't have an inflated ego, and I don't, I'm not that way. I don't believe in doing something like that to try to, if somebody wants my help for the way I am, for who I am,
mm-hmm.
what I am, hey, I'm all for it. But I don't believe in stepping up. I mean, I don't believe in, trying to kiss somebody's butt to get what I want or get my way, or I don't go like that. I mean, that doesn't work for me. And as I said, respect has to be earned. It's not a given thing. And life is too short to go and have grudges with someone. I mean, and I have known so many people that have just, unfortunately, they burnt that bridge for whatever reason, that they can't go back, because you never know if you've had a situation where you need help from somebody that maybe you burnt that bridge with. You never know when you're going to have to go to that person and say, hey, I need your help. Would you be willing to help me? But if you burnt that bridge, with that person, whatever the situation is, you may not get that help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's and also be careful what you wish for, because you just may get it.
Yeah, and, I've learned that over time.
And karma, they say, well, karma will come back and bite you in the butt every single time. And I believe that it can, but I hope I never get put into a situation like that, because I like helping people. I like helping my friends, in the wrestling business. I just enjoy what I do, but I don't try to put myself in that spotlight. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be there. Now, sometimes, I have people recognize me from other states. I mean, I'll tell you, when we were at WrestleCon, for example, in Control Your Narrative, there was these two guys. One was from Ireland, and his friend was from Switzerland. They knew about me, and how they knew about me, I don't know. I mean, I'm not and I'll give you another example. My friend that we went to Texas with, he actually, when MJF from AEW was a child, they were neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And he would babysit MJF when he was a kid. Well, my friend was flying to Kansas City to go to his grandfather's funeral, and MJF, and Wardlow and Sean Spears, they were on their way to go to an AEW show somewhere. And MJF came up to my friend Brian, and he says, "Hey, bro," he says, "how you doing?" You know, and Brian says, "Oh, I'm fine in Kansas City. My grandfather passed away." He says, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." He says, "Got a quick question for you before I go catch my flight." He says, "You know a lady in Arkansas by the name of Granny Hulkster?" And Brian says, "Yeah, I do." He says, "How do you know about Granny?" And he says, "Word of mouth." And that's Hollywood telling. I mean, I've never met MJF ever, you know. But, I mean, I have had friends, independent wrestling friends, that have actually wrestled for AEW Dark. I know the gentleman that is head of security for AEW. I don't think he would have said anything to him. My friend Barry occasionally will work security for AEW. I mean, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, did you tell MJF about me?" And he says, "No." And I said, "Well, somehow he knows about Granny." But like these guys from Ireland and Switzerland, you know, they were like, "Oh, you are just absolutely amazing. You know, we know who you are."
Yeah.
I mean, I have people come up to me. I have adults, you know, kids will come up and they'll ask for my autograph and they'll want their picture with me, you know, which is fine. I love that. I mean, because I love kids anyways. But I will have, we went to an independent show in Kansas City at a baseball park 2 days before my birthday in 2016 because I was getting ready to have my other knee replacement surgery done on my birthday. And we went over to Hooters after the show to get something to eat. And these two adult men came running over to me. "Can we get our picture with you?" "Oh, yeah, I guess, you know. I mean, sure, why not, you know?" But, I mean, I'm just me. You know, I don't claim to be anybody special, you know?
Yeah.
I don't claim to be anybody special. And, you know, and I don't know if you want to know how I got started in Attitude Era Live, but, you know,
I want to bring that up in a little bit, but before we do...
Okay, that's fine. We'll wait on that one then, but...
yeah.
But, no, I mean, for the most part, you know, I just enjoy doing what I do, you know?
Did you...
And it really burns the heels up when the fans will start the Granny Hulkster chant. They do not like that. Boy, they hate that. They'll say, "Quit chanting her name!"
Yeah. Did you watch the women's wrestling show Glow back in the 80s?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
I just interviewed Matt Simber, who created it or produced it. You know, he was Jay Mansfield's last husband. And then Greg Gilbert interviewed him a couple weeks later. I connected them. And then, oh my God, one of the male cast members on that show DM'd me because him and Matt had had lunch before we did the interview. And like he was like being persistent wanting to come on my podcast, and I did my research. The guy was absolutely crazy. And I'm like, I saw this like YouTube video of him talking, and he's just so arrogant. And then I read the comments, and this one person commented he used to be a regular at a movie theater in Hollywood, and he would always like steal discarded popcorn and like fall asleep in the theater all day and stuff.
Oh God! Well, I've actually been on Greg Gilbert's show a couple of different times.
Yes.
You know, he's interviewed me a couple of different times. So
I'm coming back on again in October.
Awesome.
Yeah. When I started, I started listening to his podcast about 5 months before I started my own, and it was just by accident. I was looking for some horror movie people to see if they're nice or not, because I was about to meet them at this one convention I went to and stuff, and that's how it all happened from there. And then, you know, I started following him. He started following me, and we had a couple of years of competitiveness and rockiness, but we've come out of it, so it's all good. Have you ever seen the wrestling documentaries, Grunt, a wrestling movie, and I Like to Hurt People?
I don't think I've ever seen that one. I mean,
those are 1985.
Not familiar, but
yeah. Those were 1985. I just interviewed the director of Grunt, Alan Holzman. I interviewed him 3 years ago, and then I interviewed his wife just recently. She did the music for the movie.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I like to watch wrestling documentaries. I know one time my husband and I, we actually went to one of our local theaters in Fayetteville, Arkansas, at the Razorback Theater. They had the movie about Ted DiBiase there, and that was a pretty interesting movie. We went and saw that. That was pretty interesting. There were things that I don't think that I knew. You know, I had the opportunity to meet Ted DiBiase a couple of years ago at a Comic-Con in Rogers, Arkansas, that him and Booker T were at, and then I believe it was that same year that we saw him in March, and then I saw him and Booker T again when we went in April, when we went to Texas for WrestleMania with our friend Brian. So, but WrestleCon was a lot of fun. I would, I'd like to go back to another WrestleMania again. I'd like to go back to another WrestleCon again if I ever get the opportunity, but who knows? I'd like to, but maybe it'll happen.
Are you into NASCAR?
Sometimes I'll watch it. I'm not real big into NASCAR. I mean, I was usually, like, when I did watch it, I like to watch Jeff Gordon when he raced. But I'm not big into NASCAR. I like football. I like baseball. And then, of course, I like my wrestling, so.
Yeah, I watched Dale Earnhardt get beat when I was in the hospital recovering from my accident. I was under anesthesia. I just remember this was a race that just would not end. I mean, it went on 8 hours, and then by the time he got there and lost, he got out of there so abrupt, and someone gave him a Coca-Cola, and he drank it, and that was it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, my favorite football team is the Kansas City Chiefs, and then, of course, my Kansas City Royals are my favorite baseball team. When they had the Super Bowl, they did against the Eagles. They actually showed the Super Bowl in a movie theater up in Bentonville, Arkansas, and you paid $10 for your gift card, and that covered your food and drinks, but you didn't have to pay anything extra for the seat ticket. And they showed the Super Bowl up on the big movie screen, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And those reclining seats, and people came and got your food and drink order while you were watching the game. So that was pretty cool.
How about monster trucks? You into that?
Yeah, I like monster truck shows. I occasionally go to those.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite monster trucks is Gravedigger. I've always liked Gravedigger. I don't know why, but I like his truck, and I mean, there's a lot of them that I like on the monster truck scene. I like to watch monster truck shows.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. What are your favorite movies?
Well, I'm not big on horror movies. I mean, I have watched them back in the day, like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street,
what about The Legend of Boggy Creek?
I've not seen that one. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen that one, but I like action movies. I like movies that's got anything with dogs, and I'm an animal lover, so I love my dogs, love my cats. I'm an animal lover, so I love movie. I like that movie. Channing Tatum, it was called Dog, where he was taking the dog, home to the guy's family. The guy had gotten killed in the military, and he was taking the dog back to the guy's family for the funeral. That was a good movie, and I like Westerns. I'm a big Sam Elliott and Tom Selleck fan. I love, Kevin Costner, like Tombstone, and the Sacketts, I like my Westerns, and mystery movies. I like mystery movies, things like that. But, like back in the day, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, I mean, I've watched all those, but I can either, take it or leave horror movies. They're okay. I mean, everybody to each their own. I'm just not into the big horror scene like some people are, but that's okay. Everybody likes. If everybody liked the same thing, it would be a dull, boring world.
Yeah, The Searchers is my favorite Western. I also love The Gunfighter with Gregory Peck and High Noon, which, by the way, Gregory Peck turned down High Noon because he thought it was too similar to The Gunfighter. Yeah. I'm sure you loved the outlaw car movies back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, lately I just haven't. I think the last movie that my husband and I went to, we actually went on a trip over to Durant, Oklahoma with our Springdale Senior Center people. We went on one of those big buses, and spent the night. And we went over to Choctaw Casino for an overnight stay, and they actually had a movie theater in there in a bowling alley and 3 casinos inside this big casino. I mean, it was one of the biggest ever. And on Tuesdays, they show movies all day long for $5.
Right.
No matter your age, So we went to see the new Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise, and that was a really good movie. That was really good. I was really impressed with that. So.
Yeah. So, how do you meet Icon and Mathis?
Oh, Matthias?
Yeah.
Well, I actually, before they started on Ken's 89.1, Ken's FM, I actually just called in one night to listen to a show because a really good friend of mine, one of my wrestling friends, Sam Stackhouse, his wife Chelsea, was one of our guests. And I actually called in just to kind of listen to the show, and they brought me on as to ask a question for Chelsea. And it was a couple days later that I was contacted. Of course, that was just when we were just doing it on Blog Talk Radio, and Matthias wasn't really a part of the show yet, but I was asked by Big Swing and Icon if I would like to become part of the show and be like a co-host, and that's kind of how everything got started. And then we've been on Ken's 89.1, Ken's FM for right at 2 years now, so I still call in through the Blog Talk thing, but they do the show live in the radio studio every Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's how I got started with that, and so.
Yeah. Once again, I enjoyed coming on in February. I didn't know what to expect. It was live, and I was nervous. I called him Scott instead of Icon, and then I turned it into humor. I'm sorry, Icon. You look like a Scott.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. I just didn't know what to expect. But who have been your favorite guests so far?
Oh my goodness. Well, we've had so many since I've been a part of it. I mean, I love whenever we have anybody with wrestling on there. Anybody to do with anything with wrestling is always my favorites. We had Sergeant Slaughter's daughter Kelly on one of our episodes pretty recently, not too long ago. That was a really neat interview. We've had Papa Stroh. He used to wrestle for WCW back in the day. We've had him on our show. We've had, we've had so many names. I guess I really don't have a favorite. I know, and we've had people on there that I actually have known personally. James Beard, he's a referee in the independent wrestling scene. Like I said, we've had so many good names. We had Michael Lerner from the Waltons, Olivia Walton, on our show one time, and she was a really sweet lady.
I've had Judy Norton on.
Talking to her.
Yeah, I've had Judy Norton on. I'm surprised she did it because she's a Scientologist, and most Scientologists don't want to do my podcast because they hear sci-fi at the beginning of it.
But like I said, we've had a lot of great names over the years. It's just, and it's always fun. And we had one of my really good friends. He lives in Hot Springs. His name is Michael Dampier, but they call him the Burger Chef. And I've known him for like 12 years, and everything. And he's a big wrestling fan, just like I am. And I know we've had Brian Pillman Jr. on there, and we had Eric Bischoff on there. We've had Stevie Ray on there. I'm just trying to think of all the other names. Kinsey Page, we had her on there, and she actually, after we had her on our episode, she actually started wrestling for AEW. And and then Matthias, he kind of started, once we went on the radio station thing, he started coming on and helping because Big Swing, his schedule sometimes doesn't allow him to always be on every week. So, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've enjoyed doing it. Not sure how much longer I'm going to be able to do it. And like I said, right now with my mom's health the way that it is right now, I may have to be taking some time away. I don't know yet. So we'll see what happens. So.
Yeah, my heart goes out to you for that because I know what that's like. Yeah, I mean, who does the primary booking for the show?
Well, I guess that would be Icon because I don't really do anything. I just call in, because Icon and Matthias, they're live in the studio, and sometimes Ken, the owner of the radio station, he's on the show with us sometimes. And then, like I said, Big Swing, he runs, him and Icon, I guess they run the switchboard thing, for the calls and stuff. But I guess Icon is the one that probably gets the guests on. I mean, I don't have anything to do with that, so.
Yeah, it can be a total clusterfuck to book people for the show.
I know. I used to do a podcast. I used to be a part of a podcast with some friends of mine. I started in as a caller and a guest host, and then finally I took over hosting the show, and I was always having to get guests to come on every week, and it's a lot of work, and I had to step away just because of my health issues. And so my one wrestling friend that I know through wrestling that I've known for many years, he took over as hosting it, and I would still be on the show and run the switchboard and, still be a part of it, but I just had to step down from being the host of it, so.
Yeah. Is there a bucket list guest you'd like to have?
I don't know if we could ever get Tommy Dreamer on there, but I'd like to have Tommy Dreamer on our show. I love Tommy. He's absolutely awesome. I love Tommy. So I don't know. I mean, there's some people that I'd like to see on there. I don't know if it'll ever happen or not. But as I said, right now, I don't know. With the way my mom's health is getting to be, I don't know how many trips I'm going to have to be making back to Kansas in the near-time future, and I don't want to try to have to commit myself to try to do something if I'm not going to be able to be there to help with it, you know what I'm saying? And I think it's maybe time that I just kind of maybe just step away for a little while and see what happens. I don't know if that if that would happen, if I would have to step away, I'm not sure how long I would be gone. So.
Mm-hmm. You guys had Ben Jones, who played Cooter on the Dukes of Hazzard. That must have been great.
Yep. That was awesome.
Yeah, I've been trying to get Rick Hurst, who played Cletus, for a long time. Hopefully, hopefully it'll happen in the future.
Dukes of Hazzard was another one of my favorite shows. We had, it was the one, I can't remember his real name, but it was when the cousins were in the Dukes of Hazzard series, Coy and...
Yep.
I think it was Coy we had on as a guest, and one time on the podcast. And
isn't one of those guys dead now?
And I don't know.
I could have swore one of them died a long time ago, but yes, I remember those guys. Do you remember the Rousters?
I think so.
Short-lived Dukes of Hazzard ripoff, Stephen J. Cannell produced, with Chad Everett and Jim Varney playing these two brothers who are security guards at Hoyt Axton's carnival, and they solve crimes and stuff. The pilot had Fred Dreyer, just before Hunter, played the bad guy, and Robert Davi from The Goonies, and so many movies. Yeah, it was pretty funny, and Mimi Rogers was the love interest on the show and stuff. It only lasted one season.
Yeah, I know it didn't last very long. So.
Yeah. Well, Granny, I thank you so much for coming on today, and I hope your family situation will be stabilized or get some closure in the future. But in the meantime, stay happy, continue doing Attitude Era Live as much as you can, and just be safe out there.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and thank you for inviting me on, and thank you for your time. It was a lot of fun, so.
Yes, and enjoy the rest of the summer, because fall will be here before you know it.
And I'm looking forward to fall, because I don't like the hot temperatures. I mean, the last couple mornings have been nice and cool, and I'm like, okay. But I had to just stick this in there. When you posted my picture, it was so funny. I know what you meant to type, and it's just typographical error. I hate that. I'll be typing a word. It's like...
ho-host?
You put ho-host as a co-host, not ho-host, But I remember, the other day I was typing something, and I went to type my name, Granny.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that it changed, and it actually changed to Gravy Hulkster, and I'm like, Gravy Hulkster? I didn't type Gravy, I typed in Granny, so, I mean, it happens, but it was like...
I didn't even see the ho-host thing, too.
Folks, so co-host,
I feel so bad, I didn't even see it. I mean, I was wondering why you said ho-host.
That's why I put LOL, It's like, can you correct this?
I didn't understand it. I completely brain farted.
Yeah, but that's okay. Co-host, not ho-host. I'm not a ho, but
Oh, you're not gonna like my intro then?
No, whatever. It's all good. It's all good.
All right, Granny. You have a great day. Be safe.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Granny Hulkster. Ain't she a sweetheart? Yeah, she's a bundle of energy. She loves to talk, doesn't she? I loved talking to her and hearing what she had to say. Go check out Attitude Era Live. I believe it streams on Mondays, and it's a lot of fun. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.